This writing workshop series is brought to you by the Center for Sacred Sciences in Eugene, Oregon. The center's mission is to teach the core truth shared by all the world's great mystics, to foster a new worldview based on that truth, and to support a community of practitioners who wish to discover that truth in their own experience. You can visit centerforsacredsciences.org for hundreds of audios, videos, and articles, as well as a calendar of events. And now, episode 2 of 4 of the Go As Nothing Writing Workshop series with Mary Song.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Go As Nothing Writing Workshop series. In a moment, we will reveal again the writing prompt for today's session, which we gave at the end of episode number 1. I hope you have had time to look at number 1. The participants have already received the prompt and are ready to read for you. But before that, I want to read a short passage from the book, The Way of Selflessness by Joel Morwood. Joel says, "We translate our lived experience into an interior stream of images, ideas, memories, expectations, and judgments, which our thinking minds weave into an intricate and ongoing narrative. This is the story of I, in which each of us ends up starring as a full-blown ego self. And like any good soap opera, the dramatic tension always boils down to the same question with which the tale began. Will I be able to avoid suffering and attain happiness?" The story has no end, Joel tells us. Hour after hour, day after day, year after year, it continues to completely captivate our attention, thereby keeping us perpetually distracted from our true nature. I wanted to share that with you because the unfolding that we are doing in these writing workshops is based on that teaching. And then I also want to mention quickly that I always tell the writers that if I ever give a prompt that they are not ready to receive, that is, they need more stability before going into that prompt, that they should decide for themselves whether or not to go with it. I always say, don't go where you're not ready to go. You may be working on an issue and something like this prompt is just not right for you right now. And that's okay. Emotional well-being is important, and I understand that. Still, you can sit back and watch and see if inspiration arises for you. So welcome, everybody. The session begins in a moment, but first we will reveal today's writing prompt. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vow 100 times, come, come yet again, says Rumi, whom, most of us have heard of Rumi and have some heart feeling for the words of Rumi. I think this little call is so important because sometimes we think, oh, I've tried everything, nothing works for me. And the message here is come, come yet again, come again. It doesn't matter. That one went that way. Now we try again. So greetings to all and welcome to everyone tuning into our second episode of the Go As Nothing Writing Workshop. This is the second of a series of 4 episodes that link together. And I hope that you've already watched the first one. If not, if you haven't seen the first one yet, I urge you to back up and watch the first and then the second and the third and the fourth, because these are meant to dovetail. So they blend and weave into each other, creating a synthesis okay, which is what I hope happens at the end. We have the same participants in each episode, and if you're tuning in with us today, I hope that you will try the prompts that we do. When we do in-session writings, the folks here, they haven't heard what it is. They don't have time either to work on it or anything. So this goes in line with my commandment, no thinking, don't think. The thinking mind often gets in our way. It tells us things like, oh, this isn't good enough. This isn't what she means. Why am I here? Theirs are good, mine's not. Okay, how many here have felt that, from time to time? You feel that? Yeah, mine's not good like Deborah's is, or like Heart Songs is, or anybody in the world. And so there's that comparing mind. It causes us suffering. And so what we want to do is we're going to part that away and jump right in, which we'll do now for introductions. It's a little bit more complicated. Each time more complication, because we're going somewhere with this. And we're going to get creative with storytelling. And later on, I'll talk about fiction, nonfiction, and why I'm in love with fiction and nonfiction. I love the whole thing. Okay, so in the first episode, when we did introductions, we experimented with points of view. And later on, we experimented with the point of view. And we'll do that again. And this time, we'll also be looking at verb tense. What we think of as past, present, future. The mystics say doesn't really exist. And on the relative plane, we experience life that way. That happened back then, now, and then, okay? So I don't know which way on the screen my hand is going, but I think you get the idea. So this time, I'd like us to introduce ourselves in past tense, third person. For example, her name was Mary. Is past tense. Her name was Mary, okay? And to say something about that character, Mary, that has that name, you might give one of the sufferings of poor Mary. I don't mean to diminish that. One of the sufferings of Mary, or something Mary loved. Past tense, third person. So not the I. So he, she, or they would be appropriate here. Okay, everybody game? Feel free to, if you need to jot down a little bit of something, that's fine with me. I always jot down something. In fact, you might see me from time to time. She's like she's scribbling down notes. It's just part of the way I work. So it's fine for you all to do that too. Okay. So I'll start, then we go to Deborah, and then we just go around our circle, and everyone will introduce themselves. Her name was Mary. Merry. Really? She suffered because when she entered high school, nobody wanted to be her locker mate. She felt so dejected. Later in life, she still felt like nobody wanted to be her locker mate. Even though she didn't have a locker anymore, she still carried that story, nobody wants to be my locker mate. Finally, she gave up suffering when she illuminated the story of I. She then became Mary Song. Okay? Welcome, everyone. Let's go now to Deborah.
Her name was Deborah Delia. She was very large. She had a small house with a large porch, and she sat on the porch, keeping her hands busy while she gave good advice because she knew the truth.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I want to point out that we use fiction in this workshop as well as nonfiction. So sometimes you'll hear the participants just reach up and grab some fiction. Okay? Or sometimes they're telling a lived experience, and all of that is acceptable here. Thank you. Go ahead.
He was called Wayne, and he participated on the planet as an athlete and an intellectual to a pretty limited degree of success. Much of it he enjoyed, much of it he struggled through.
Welcome. Thank you.
Her name was Shani. She remembers a life of worry, 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 even though she was seen as an asset by everyone.
Thank you, Shani.
Her name was Nancy Turner, and she grew up in Birmingham, Michigan. And she never realized that she was supposedly of a privileged family. She never really understood that until she grew up, and she continues to deal with that today. But all is good. So.
And now she goes by Heartsong, huh?
Now she goes by Heartsong.
Thank you.
Her name was Robin, and she thought that she could save the whole world by recycling one tea bag scrap at a time and riding her bicycle everywhere.
Thank you, Robin.
His name was Jed, and he always went by Jed, even though his name was actually Jedediah. And he was loved by a lot of people, and he was hated by a lot of people, but not many people had weak opinions of him. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jed.
Her name was Cheryl Ann, and apparently this was a common name in the 50s. It was also the name of a tugboat that was in a movie. She never liked the name Cheryl, and when her spiritual teacher gave her the name Neeraj, she was thrilled, even though people couldn't pronounce it and called her all sorts of other things.
Thank you, Neeraj.
His name was Aaron. He was comfortable being with other people and finding out how they were doing and doing what he could to be of service to the world. But every time someone asked him, "How are you?" he recoiled.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Aaron. So, folks tuning in, I recommend giving this a try. Oh my goodness, what a funny feeling it is sometimes. See what comes up. It could be pure fiction or a lived story, and you may mix the two together. Writers do that often, lived experience with fiction. I love fiction so much that I went on and got an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, so that I could do fiction writing. I just love that, to dream up stories. And people often say, well, you must have lived that. And I said, well, no, not necessarily. If I just dreamed up the character, and sometimes you inhabit a character. And I think it's actually an act of compassion in some cases when you inhabit a character and create that on a page. But I don't think I have ever met a person who does not love fiction. Whether that's a TV show. My mother loved The Young and the Restless, soap operas. Loved that. For 40 some years or more, every weekday, that story unfolded and unfolded. She loved that. And then, movies and books she loved to read. Loving fiction, loving. And as a child, didn't you love the storybooks? Once Upon a Time. Who here loves fiction? Let me see. You love fiction? Okay. So that's no news, really. I think our world, we spin out a lot of fiction and it works for us. We learn a lot through parables and fables and fairy tales and all these types of things. Now, when it comes to the story of I, and I have been describing what the story of I is for the viewing audience, mystics tell us that this story arising is also fiction. And some teachers say, drop the story. And that sometimes works. When Joel told me, go as nothing in a time when I was feeling some anxiety, that's another way of saying, drop the story and go without it. Go as nothing. And some people find that, it's harsh, like just kick it out, just throw it in the trash, or, Iron Curtain comes down, I'll never think of the past again. I'm not this way. I actually delight when I shine a spotlight on my story of I see it as kind of an undercurrent. There it is, and it kind of rises up sometimes and tries to captivate my mind with usually something in suffering, like, this happened 2 days ago. I was lying down, feeling I needed to take a little nap or something. And all of a sudden, I was back in high school and nobody wanted to be my locker mate. And I was thinking, oh, that was so terrible. There I am going down the hallway and no one wanted to be my locker mate. And I felt the feeling of that. Like, if you tuned into a movie, like, Joel always uses the Titanic as an example, which I never saw. But whatever it is, you feel into it. So I was feeling into this character, this Mary who didn't get a locker mate and felt so rejected by that. Now, you could say, well, that really did happen. It really did happen. I got proof here. I took a whole movie of it. I had the movie camera out and I took a picture and I interviewed people. They said, we don't want to be your locker mate. We can prove it. But the point is, right now, I'm not wandering in the hallway looking for a locker mate. It's a fiction arising. Yeah, I had some lived experience back there. That's over. Okay, right now, there's no locker. There's no looking for a locker mate. Okay, but I can enjoy the fiction of it. So what I have found to be true is that when I shine the bright light of illumination onto these stories, I see through them. And I see how it's rising, wanting to capture you in that spell of the mind. That's, the job of the story of I, to keep you captivated. So you're only seeing that misery. Oh, and then this happened, and then that. And right now, nobody wants to hear me or read what I have to say or anything. So, kind of balloons out or mushrooms out to permeate your life. But watching, looking in, seeing it as fiction arising, you have the opportunity to really loosen that grip on the story, which, by the way, taking it to full circle, shows us that this sense of separation, that I am actually a single being separated from the whole, that this is fiction too. And I think it's really fun. I mean, some people are terrified of this idea. You mean I'm not a separate? Okay, so this is something will continue to unfold. And for many people, it takes quite some time to cultivate awareness, the practices and so on, spiritual practices to get to that possibility. And for others, instant. Who knows? All of that said, I want to go on now for our first round of readings. Now, let's see. I hope that the viewers looking in have already received the prompt and have done their own writing on this. I wish you could join us and we could hear you. We're not set up to go live yet, but maybe someday, wouldn't that be something to have a version of this? And people could actually appear with what they wrote. So in this case, prompt number 2, I prefaced it by saying, imagine you can stop the movie projector. And when I wrote that, I said, oh, you're so dated. Movie projectors. So I also put the digital play or the digital display, whatever. You could stop the whole thing and handle the stories. Well, here's the one where I didn't get a locker mate, and then I went and got the MFA or whatever. Now leap into the following prompt without concern for getting it right or impressing anyone, because this happens, my friends. We think, oh, what a really good one where people just go, wow, right? This is our human nature, and maybe part of our suffering too, wanting to impress everybody. But we're not concerned about that here. In fact, we create a tapestry, so it all weaves together as one. So the prompt is, you will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled. Now, I gave this prompt in the future tense. Did you notice? If you didn't, don't worry. But as I wrote it, I could have said, you sort your stories, which would be present, or you sorted. But you is the second person here. And I decided, let's try the future. You will sort. And just see what happens. If you wrote along and all of a sudden it became past, it does not matter. We're just seeing what comes of this. Any comments or anybody? Okay, should we just start with the readings then? Good. So we're going to go around the room, and the order of names we have is Deborah, Wayne, Shani, Heartsong, Robin, Jed, Niraja, and Aaron. And we're going to not make comments in between. I should cut my mic because I get talkative and break in there. So I'm going to cut my mic, and then a person reads, we pause, we bow, and we go to the next person. Sound good? Yes. We may begin.
You will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled A, B, and C. You like to be organized, but you are not actually good at doing it. You lack what they call executive function skills. You will get as far as labeling 3 file folders, A, B, and C, neat and tidy. That is where you will come to a halt. Your brain will seem to go numb, as if you have snorted Novocaine. The 3 folders will swim before you. How do you categorize the stories, you will wonder, because you will not be able to think of a single story. This always happens. Remember those exercises in school when the teacher said, think of a time when? You never could think of a time when, so you thought there was something wrong with you. You made up a story, or you did not follow instructions. Some people might have thought this was creative, but most people thought this was just not following instructions, and you did not want to get in trouble, so you learned to cover it up. You learned to get good at making up a story to cover up the fact that you didn't have a story, not like the one they thought you should have. In fact, that is what you are doing now. How meta. There is, though, one story you remember in crushing detail. It is the one about the night your parents told you they were getting a divorce. There was violence. Maybe that is why you remember, why you can never forget. Violence makes for memorable stories. Okay, what's next? There is no next. You ran out of stories at age 11. Memories, too. All that is left are sensations, not pleasant ones. Sensations and reactions to things that happen now that remind you of things that happened then. They are what prove where you have been and what happened to you, but no one can see them, so they don't believe you. You are invisible. Maybe you will be able to get away with only 2 folders. A is for the stories you can prove with factual evidence. B is for the stories that live in your body that no one can see and so don't believe. The A folder will sadly be thin, containing only a couple of notes jotted on scraps of paper. The B folder, the one that holds the stories you feel in your body every minute of every day, you're going to need a bigger folder.
You will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled 1. Entertaining but unconfirmed. 2. Undeniably true. And 3. Outright lies. Is this striving for certainty something that I've learned along the way? In what way is it helpful to sort the stories that present themselves to me? It's certainly helpful in my day-to-day existence. As a child, when I finally recognized that there truly wasn't a monster underneath the bed, it made it easier to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. As an adult, it helps me to identify injustice and apply myself to correcting it in what little ways I can, and or preventing it in the future. The future? Under what category shall these yet-to-be-written stories be filed? They cannot be analyzed until they're recognized. And their recognition, doesn't that require that the story has a reader? One who receives, perceives, deceives them into existence? Boy, this story, as it's being written, has a lot of question marks. I once had an inclination to have my hair cut such that a large question mark appeared at the back of my head. But I digress. Do all good stories need digressions? Okay, let's say a story pops up. I pull the car into the driveway, turn it off, and get out to open the garage door. Do so, and then return to the driver's seat. I turn the key. Nothing. No vroom, no stinky gas smell, no of the engine turning over, not even any dash lights. This story's category? Entertaining but unconfirmed? No, definitely not entertaining, as subplots of mystification and frustration appear. Undeniably true? Well, it just happened right in front of my eyes, hands, and ears, didn't it? What more proof could I need? My credo of skepticism forces me to avoid putting this story directly into this category. I'll have to give it more analysis. An outright lie? Can't put it here. I trust myself to look at things objectively and sincerely. My perceptions are usually pretty trustworthy. I stand at the brink of disbelief, wishing I could speak truthfully, authentically, compassionately, and accurately to all who I encounter.
You sort your stories into 3 piles labeled my main worries, my minor worries, all my other worries. As they appear, this suffer essence, mimicking alluring impressions, endless tormenting thoughts, surround, embrace, cling and clench, parading as serious, real concerns. Intruding life, unworthy, unable, can't do it right, or not even at all. The piles play with each other like children, abandon etiquette. A wild field where breeze, rain, and sun blend the elusive veils, flapping flimsily, forming patterns, pretending into concrete details, once truths, no longer useful, nor to name ad nauseum. In a moment, perhaps a wild storm, a sudden squall, the tension eases. Oh, what relief to know my little fond piles intimately and wholly, truly untrue. As for the spotlight, right where it is, shines, focused as it seems, mysteriously. Imagined edges dissolve, becoming tears, quiet, permeating, a boundless presence seemingly dependent on having once strayed. Oh, child frolic, those piles, soft, colorful leaves now. The passing seasons, leaving only joy.
You will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled things to be organized and done. You will make a list most mornings of the things you need or want to get accomplished that day. For example, it will read bank, post office, food for party, call sister, make doctor's appointment, wash hair, collect garbage, figure out the best way to get to Seattle, etc. That pile is the loudest. Second pile, ruminations about the past. You will remember your mother's 100th birthday in great detail. You will picture your friend's expression when she opened the gift you gave her. You will consider how your grandson's injured knee affected his soccer ambitions and how your daughter handled the situation. You'll remember how dry it was last summer when your garden did not thrive. And then the third pile, thoughts about the future, is the third pile. Will my partner ever return from Mexico? It's been forever. It will be fun when the family goes on a trip next summer. Will it be an Alaska cruise or a vacation house on the coast? What would the grandkids' lives be like with social media and endless screen time? Their lives will differ from mine for sure.
You will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled past, present, and future. Each one will have its turn. At first, you can't decide where certain stories belong. There's the one entitled Mother, for example. The words she says now are bolstered by the words she said then. The words she says now are not merely words in a vacuum. In your mind, the words are well crafted and informed, yet unconscious, calls for battle, self-righteousness, and vanquishment of the perceived meek and flawed who do not agree with her words. They span the entire length of the room, and so forget about it. Mother's story is getting its own designated 4th pile, all of its own. Your story of Mother will sit in the center of your room, stinking for most of your life. You don't see any way to change it, as any and every attempt has only made the pile grow yet larger and smellier, too big for a much-needed trip to the laundry, and too obnoxious to take out in public for a story makeover. Oh, what to do? The story is story. You don't like it, but that never did have anything to do with it. You may inadvertently find yourself picking up the story, no, the novel, from time to time, but thank goodness, you can always put it back down once you realize you have done so.
You will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled as expected, better, and worse. This project takes quite some time because you have an excellent memory. That is, a full memory. It may or may not actually represent the events of the past, but these piles are for the stories that already exist. So they must be memories. Even stories about what you want to attain or avoid in the future are memories of desire and aversion you've had in the past. There is no sorting what does not yet exist, so all things sorted are of experienced things, even if they are imagination of the future. As you sort, you come across some projections of stories that seem to defy the process. Links between better and worse that don't seem to be either. They are not as expected because they are part of the stories that go to the better pile and also part of the stories that go to the worse pile. The more you contemplate these not this and not that stories, the more you begin to question your prejudice that is responsible for the sorting in the first place. Broccoli. It's not cookies, but it's not cod liver oil. It's good for me, but it doesn't feel or taste like French fries. What the heck does good mean? What does bad mean? If it tastes good but has bad effects, what is it? And if it tastes bad but has good effects, likewise. Homework, good or bad? Laughing, crying, love, hate. What is it that makes the sorting so hard for you? It was easy at first, but the more consideration you gave it, the more you contemplated distinguishing this from that, the less sense it made, till you could only see one big long string of a single story stretching from beyond the beginning of your memory into the infinite imagination of the future. So if all experience is one big story, all sensation connected to all other, how should you judge it? Then the enigma of the first line of the Sin Sin Ming pops into your head. There is nothing difficult about the Great Way, but avoid choosing.
You will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled happy, sad, indifferent. Or should it be by age or location? You have so many ways to sort your stories, it's hard to pick just one. But here goes. 1, stories that recur and make you smile. 2, stories that continually cause anxiety or stories you want to forget. And 3, stories that you can't believe really happened. So these probably don't include everything, and in some cases overlap. Like the story you relive about how you won a big fellowship. You smile. You remember the stress you felt going up on stage to give an acceptance speech, and you are still amazed that you were accepted. So that story fits all 3, and you certainly don't want to forget it. Perhaps you should pick some mutually exclusive categories. Those all seem a function of time. Not as interesting as the more emotional categories, stories you wished never happened, stories that probably didn't happen the way you remember them, and stories that you have never told anyone. These 3 are also full of overlaps, but you won't give an example because, well, you will never tell some of them.
You will sort your stories into 3 piles labeled disillusionment, disappointment, and shame. It's not so important to keep them so separate. You'll find there might be some overlap. Disillusionment has to do with all the times you didn't see what was actually there. It's like a light bulb, just forgetting to turn it on. You found a cricket in the grass, but it was some diamond ring you had your heart set on. That's the kind of idea you're looking for here. As your boss, I'll remind you that although this work may seem banal, like taking out the trash or washing dishes, try not to expect too much from it. Use it as disillusionment practice. Disappointment were all the times you felt unseen or unheard or uncared for, coming back up to place in front of your eyes between you and the outside world. It's all you see. It's protective and sheltering to think others can fail you. Really, though, you're just not looking closely enough. See how these can overlap pretty easily? I know what I'm talking about here. The 3rd category turns love, turns truth, turns beauty on itself. Shame is a hermit crab that hides in the weeds. You look for hours and can't find it until it snags your toe by accident. Have you ever felt the times when you just seem to come up short? Or when you look up and can't make out the shape of the clouds or constellations? Do you know what that is? It's shame, sweetheart. It's all the times disillusionment and disappointment fail. Your barriers break down. It's just you there. No wonder things aren't clear. You can't smell right, see right. Food tastes like your belief about yourself. Go ahead and throw it all on this pile. I don't think there's such a big gap between any of these after all.
I wonder what your experience is like listening to all these. For me, I love to hear the individual voices. But then, I just get this overwhelming sensation that it's all one voice, just coming with different vocal cords, a different tone, that somehow, they merge into one. Can anybody comment on your experience of hearing these pieces? Yeah, go ahead, Judd.
I find that when I listen to people reading their writing, it doesn't strike me at all the way it does when I read things myself. Like when I read things myself, I feel like I'm hearing myself read it. And, but like when I listen to Shani and Aaron, the way that they put the accents in different places totally changes the way what they're saying feels.
Yes.
And to me, it makes a huge difference, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pleasurable for many of us, a pleasurable activity to hear these. Anybody else want to speak up about it? Yeah, Heartsong, and then Wayne.
Yeah, well, I find it fascinating how each of us came to this question with such different perspectives on it. It was wonderful to hear how each person expressed those different piles too. So it was great. I love that. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, it's, I think this practice, sometimes, especially as writers or creative people, we get into, there's nothing wrong with solitude. I love solitude. But sometimes opening up and sharing like this gives us a different perspective. Not alone, in our little nutshells, but actually connecting to all. Anybody else want to speak up? Wayne, I think, yeah, go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I'm enjoying the readings here. I feel like I'm sitting in a Reader's Digest best of collection or something like that. I just appreciated everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope it's a little higher caliber than Reader's Digest, but somebody might say, hey, I love Reader's Digest. I love the Sun magazine, but I shouldn't put in plugs, right? Okay. So I am just adjusting my screen here. And yeah, Deborah, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak to the second person. I really enjoyed writing in the second person and listening in the second person as well. I used to really love to write in the first person because I felt it was more immediate. Mm-hmm. But the second person is really interesting as a reader and a writer. I'm not exactly sure how to put my finger on it, but it just gives me more permission, I guess, to say some things that I might not say otherwise. And also in listening to the second person, I feel I'm being spoken to correctly. And that way, I just wanted to also specifically say that Aaron's piece almost made me cry because it felt so like he was speaking to me. But all Beautiful. Of them did. So thank you.
The second person is a powerful tool, and those listening in, you may have resisted trying any of those sorts of things. Just give it a try and see what wants to be said. The beautiful thing about second and third, and even first, is that it reveals something to us. We think, oh, I already know all that sort of, but then you begin to write, and what I like to do is write, directly from imagination and intuition, so that when I sit down to write, I don't know what's going to come, and that's part of the wonderful joy of it. I don't know. I'm an open channel. Here it comes, and sometimes in the second person, it is hard to describe, Deborah, what happens in that situation. It's quite a mystery. Anybody else have a comment about about that? Or I do. Yeah, Heart Song. I appreciate your comments. Very helpful.
I really do feel like the second person, takes it away from being right in your face. So it's like if you're talking about something that's further away from you, you can use your imagination to fill in all kinds of gaps. And who knows what's real or not real? I mean, you can just do a full-blown thing with it. Whereas when you're talking about yourself, there's kind of maybe a little guardedness or, it's different. So I also love the second person for that reason.
Some folks I've worked with have resisted the second person because they feel like it's accusatory, like you shouldn't have done that, or something like this. But you see, that exposes a gem. Oh, I feel like I'm accused of something. So when they write in that second person, it doesn't feel comfortable. Someone's, pointing a finger at them. It's themselves, but that there again is that mysterious play of how that works. So if you do notice like that, let's see, what is that? What is that aversion about? Shine the light there and see. Anybody else? Beautiful work, everyone, just beautiful. I mean, we're not evaluating, but I have to say it's wonderful to be the basket. I'm receiving, and just to hear it all is a wonderful experience for me. And for those listening in, I hope that it's wonderful for you as well. I want to read a poem for you by one of my favorite poets, Hafiz, who was a Persian poet from the 14th century. And it's called I Know the Way You Can Get. So I'd like to read the poem to you, and then we'll do a in-session writing bouncing off of this. I know the way you can get when you have not had a drink of love. Your face hardens, your sweet muscles cramp. Children become concerned about a strange look that appears in your eyes, which even begins to worry your own mirror and nose. Squirrels and birds sense your sadness, and they call an important conference in a tall tree. They decide which secret code to chant to help you change your mind and soul. Even angels fear that brand of madness that arrays itself against the world and throws sharp stones and spears into the innocent and into oneself. Oh, I know the way you can get. If you have not been out drinking love, you might rip apart every sentence your friends and teachers say, looking for hidden clauses. You might weigh every word on a scale like a dead fish. You might pull out a ruler to measure from every angle in your darkness the beautiful dimensions of a heart you once trusted. I know the way you can get. If you have not had a drink from love's hands, that is why all the great ones speak of the vital need to keep remembering the divine, so you will come to know and see her as being so playful and just wanting to help. That is why Hafiz says, bring your cup near me, for I am a sweet old vagabond with an infinite leaking barrel of light and laughter and truth that the beloved has tied to my back. Dear one indeed, please bring your heart near me, for all I care about is quenching your thirst for freedom. All a sane person can ever care about is giving love. I love that sweet old vagabond. I just love that line. We're going to have an in-session writing, and I'm going to do a little tricky business here. Everybody Everybody get ready to write. Those at home, if you're driving along in the car, you can't do this, but if you're at home or someplace, coffee shop, get the pen, paper ready, the keys on the fingers on the keys. The first line of this poem is, I know the way you can get when. Okay, I want to change that. I want to change that I to you. You know the way I can get when. So I'm changing the I to you and the you to I. And I'm very curious to see what comes of it. So everyone, the prompt is, you know the way I can get when. I'm going to give you approximately 3 minutes on this. And I think I won't interrupt you this time, but I might, because I'm following intuition, right? So if I do interrupt, that means finish the sentence you're on, then start again with the line I've just given. Anybody have a question or comment? We're all ready? Okay. I'm looking at the clock. Let us begin. You know the way I can get when. Oh, you know the way I can get when. And interrupting you one more time, I'd like you to insert your name. That is why Wayne says, or whatever the name, okay? That is why blank says. I love how ecstatic poets put their name in, like, oh, Lali, Laleshwari says, or Hafiz. That is why Hafiz says. It's fun to try. Everybody give it a try. And winding that down, everybody's got their... I can never just do 3 minutes. I see everybody writing. I think, oh, don't stop the flow of this, So it ends up a little bit longer, but that's fine. Everybody complete now? Wayne says, no, I'm not. Give him another minute. 5 seconds. Shani, a little bit longer. You're ready? Okay. Okay. Bring your cup near me, for I am a sweet old vagabond with an infinite leaking barrel of light and laughter and truth that the beloved has tied to my back. I really do see Joel that way. I've always seen Joel that way. Great, Wayne's ready. Okay, let's have a round of readings. And again, I will cut my microphone so I don't chatter on, take up too much time. And we will bow between each one. And you know the order, so we'll start with Deborah.
You know the way I can get when things don't go my way. And by my way, I mean that is not what I expected and not what I wanted. You know, don't you, that this is the result of not being seen. Not even I knew I wasn't being seen, but I wasn't, not the real me. I was seen as a projection of what other people wanted me to be. This happens a lot, I suppose, but that doesn't make it okay. People like to tell me, oh, that happens to everyone. What is unspoken, sometimes not, is get over it. I did not get over it. You know the way I can get when someone tells me to get over it? I can get wild, I can get angry, I can get nasty. That is little me. She needs to be seen, not by everyone, but by someone. You are beginning to see me. That is why Delia says, you are home at last. Sit down and rest.
You know the way I can get when I feel stressed, which unfortunately is way too frequent these days. My tendency to take on too many projects for others and for myself generally leads to this undesirable condition. I continue to work on both the pile of projects, pulling them one by one off the... Oh, you know the way I can get when I'm free of any significant responsibilities. Light, funny, gentle, animated, a preferable state of affairs for sure. That is why Wayne says, consider the commands of Jesus and the other masters. Release your hold on the 10,000 things. Godness will take care of it all. And then there's Bill Murray who said, it just doesn't matter.
You know the way I can get stuck when I'm stuck in worry. I did it wrong. Should have been so, such, and so. Better, smarter, when the churning is burning in old thoughts and memories. I thank God there is relief from the way I can get. And remember the dissolution of the I that failed, couldn't perform, had too many demons and jealousies. Oh, you know the way I can get when you smile at me lovingly, reminding me of the spacious essence we share, of the joys we share in the little things of life. Shani, that is why the silence says, live in the mystery. enthrall in the flaws, accepting unconditionally as we are.
You know the way I can get when I feel ignored and unappreciated. I storm about, shutting out all positive things and angry at myself for caring. You know the way I can get when I sit alone in my house, refusing the possibility of kindness, cold, unyielding. Oh, you know the way I can get when I have not connected with love. I make lists of things to do and rush about distracted so that I cannot know that I'm suffering. That is why Heart Song says, when you see me joyful, connected, compassionate, and loving, you know I've found wholeness in the world.
You know the way I can get when I get stuck between a rock and a hard place? There was that night when we were tired and I had hours to drive home. It was getting late and long past dark, and it was beginning to rain and then pour. Stay awake was all I could think. And on the outside, I became a feelingless computer driven by one cause. Where was the camaraderie, the laughter, the interest in you and the others we were with? Gone, temporarily lost at sea. I missed the one who laughed. Oh, you know the way I can get when all words are lost and my mouth feels like it has thick bands of duct tape over it. The bridge between connection and my lonely island washes away by a flood of numbness. It's lonely as the wolves howl. That is why Robin says, just be as soft and gentle as you can. It will pass. Lost ships will return from sea and the bridge can be rebuilt. In time, the garden will grow again.
You know the way I can get when I'm wrapped up in my thoughts. You know the way I can get when I'm busy with a chore. You know the way I can get when you think I'm getting my way. You know the way I can get when my thoughts are on what I don't have and what I think should be. You see me when I'm the happiest, and you've seen me at my worst. You know me perfectly and don't seem to have any questions about me. You know your own judgment of me. If you could know the way I am, if you could know the way I see you, your ideas about what you know or think you know would fly away like 1,000 Canadian geese scared off by a charging golden retriever in a field. What would happen if you saw through these eyes? That is why Jed says, I love you, because you can't see how I see you, and I can't say it any other way.
You know the way I can get when I feel unloved, when I start crying, sobbing, my whole body shaking with fear and fury and deep longing. I'm so glad you know this, because you also know a cure, how to bring me back to love. You know where to direct my attention and how to soothe my overstimulated body and mind. You know the way I can get, and you know that sometimes I need to cry deeply and rock myself to sleep. And then sometimes you hold me tightly. You know the way I can get when I feel love, when I know love. You know that both and neither are the real me. That is why Neeraj says that remembering love always is deep healing and emerging towards truth.
You know the way I can get on the freeway. I'm sorry, it's just hard to believe that everything everyone does is targeted at me. And I don't even realize I've believed it until some Italian swear word comes out of my mouth. It's like I can't help it. And then I see you, and you don't know quite what to make of it. And I say again that what has happened revolves around me. The way I get is, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong, and how can I push it away into the next moment? It's funny telling you this. You know me so well. Oh, you know the way I can get when I've lost my way. It's another story, like a street, but I totally fall for it. Right now, I'm bracing against you, against life, against this moment, in some endless rebellion and refusal to just be still. Opening wide. That is why Aaron says, hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. This one will blow you away. Be here, and nothing will trouble you ever again, and again, and again.
I know applause is not necessary, but oh my goodness. On Zoom, we can't really applaud together, but oh my. You know, some people would say I would take a year to write that piece. I need like months to write something like this. And I believe I gave 4 to 5 minutes, actually, a little bit longer than I intended, but it astounds me each and every time. This is beautiful divine poetry, all of them together. And, it really deeply touches my heart. Can you all feel that too? Anybody want to make a comment on the experience of writing it or reading it or listening to it? Yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
Like you, I think, wowed by the amount of wisdom that sort of came forth. And I really think a lot of it has to do with that last turnaround, but also of the intentions of this group. And I know for myself, even the process of writing it was a process of opening. And I could actually give myself a few moments to stop writing and to just let it in, and how important that was too. And how I could feel that actually that sort of sentiment shared by so many others that read theirs as well.
Wonderful. Glad to hear that. Somebody else want to speak up? The writing, the reading, the listening. Jed, go ahead.
One of my favorite things about your classes is that every time we start doing a writing, I never have any idea. Like, my first thought is always, I wonder what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I'm always amazed at what happened. And it's the synergy of everybody together. Like, I wouldn't even know how to begin to start doing this on my own.
Yeah.
But when all of us come together and we listen to each other, I get so much from it. It's it's great.
I don't know what's going to happen next. So, that's part of the magic of it all for me, is not really knowing. At the last minute, I'm sitting down here and I have lots of things to choose from, and I'm going to let some divine energy come in here, and it's a matter of trust. I trust if I show up, something's going to happen. I'm just always amazed at what does happen. And so for me, that's the discovery. I get to discover every single time. And as I say, it really touches me deeply. Anybody else want to speak up? Yeah, Nirja.
As I started writing this piece, I found myself just filled with self-doubt and all of that negative emotion, like, I can't do this. This is really bad. I'm no good at this. And in writing through it, it kind of dissolved and flowed away. But it's just interesting to feel that so strongly for a moment and know that in this group, I can still read it and write it, and it's okay.
Thank you for bringing that up, because you and I were just recently talking about that self-doubt issue. I could teach an entire workshop on that, like the doubt that arises. It's one of the 5 hindrances, by the way, that blocks you from experiencing something like that. And I must say, sometimes I too, like, I'm sitting here, y'all are writing, and I'm thinking, I'm glad it's them and not me that has to do this. I just get to listen. I'm not actually writing it, but it's a letting go. It's a willingness. I'm willing to go with that flow and see where it takes me. And, it uncovers gems along the way. We might ask, who is the you? You know the way I can get. Who's the you? Who's the I? Is it all of us? We know the way we can get. See, we could change it to that plural. We know the way we can get, all of us here. When we have self-doubt or whatever it is, when we don't feel loved. And I think most of our listeners here can also identify with that. So we're weaving together this beautiful tapestry. Anybody else want to speak up? Yeah, Shani, go ahead.
It's a spiritual practice, without a doubt. And what it does is it permeates my whole being.
Oh, sweet.
And then I find that I'm coming from the silence, the don't know, more and more and more for everything. And it's like a practice. It's a reminder. And with my sweet sister this morning, we had an incredible, deep conversation where I shared with her what we're doing here. And I talked about this coming out of hiding and just some various deep things that I know were flowing in a very rich, deep way because of what we do here. This sharing and how this bonding in humanity, once we share it, it's here. It's you can almost take joy in it. I can, because it starts dissipating.
Yes.
The stranglehold is just not there.
That grip of the story of Oz begins to dissipate.
Yeah.
You brought up 2 topics that are near and dear to my heart. Coming out of hiding changed my life. It's so far-reaching. When you come out of hiding from whatever it is, I mean, in the divine way, we're hiding from the divine. I mean, but on this physical plane, we're hiding from each other, and we're hiding our sexuality, and we're hiding our intelligence, and all of these things. And with that, we take lots of energy down into the hole with us, hiding down there with all this energy. So, yes, that topic is so near to me. And also the don't know mind. Some people think, oh, that's impossible. I need to keep figuring out, the universe and all this. And the good news I have to tell you is that it's a blissful life to live in don't know mind. I don't know. I don't know who I am or what this is, or I know something about, no. I won't go there. I won't go there right now. In fact, we've come to the end of our session today. But as you can tell, my friends, there's so much beauty to this. And I thank you, Shani, for that. Very meaningful to me. Okay, your next prompt for the 8 participants here will be coming to you in email. And the rest of you listening in, you'll be seeing that prompt very shortly here. And then on our next episode, we'll pick up from there. So I thank you all for a very beautiful session together. Remember, this will dovetail into the next. Okay, so I'd like to finish with a mindful bow. And I like to honor my root teacher, Ruth Dennison, who was a Vipassana teacher, Vipassana teacher, who always had interesting ways to do a bow. Let's try this with the one hand, is bringing it up here. Very mindful. Inhabit the hand. We're not just getting this over with. Inhabit the hand. Let's bring it around one more time. Bring that hand around. Try this at home. Okay. And then the other one comes around. And unless you have a shoulder problem or something. And let's drop it and bring it around again. Three times as a charm. Okay, the two hands facing each other. Maybe it's the I and the you facing. And I don't know about you, but I feel the magnetism between the two. They're longing for union. And they're coming closer together. And the palms are beginning to touch, and the fingers. And we bow. And when we bow, we are thanking all the teachers and all the teachers, thousands of years. All of them, thank you so much. Thank you, Joel, Center for Sacred Sciences. 29 years I've been with Joel. Thank you for that, Joel. And thank all of you. Bell will ring twice. I said twice, and intuition said, keep going. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.